last 4 weeks after half-time. They have kicked 38 after half-time and just conceded 11, but this is going to go to Wake. They're blowing some chances here, the Swans. And he'll kick this one, surely. He's got it.
You are the storm, and I am the mountains. We are the men.
Towers dropped a mark he maybe should have taken. Wrapped up by Fordo. Kangaroos defence get another nice win here.
We didn't want necessarily good luck, we just didn't want so much bad luck. We still showed some remarkable resilience, but in the end your ifs, buts and maybes don't count, and we still needed some things to go our way, some things didn't, which was hard to get over in the end.
Well, after last year, expectations were pretty high for the Sydney Swans in 2015. They've had a lot of issues to deal with right throughout the year and then finally have bowed out in straight sets. For mine, I think they could be pretty proud, though, of what they achieved, Jason.
Yeah, look, I think they've had a good season. When you consider the personnel that were missing, there's certainly some extenuating circumstances as to why they couldn't progress in September. And a lot of people, and I don't know why we tend to do this, we did it with Geelong probably 5 years in a row, hoping they'd slip away, and they didn't. I don't see Sydney falling out of the picture either. I think they've got a really good core of players that are the right age. There's a couple at the top end that they're going to have concerns with, but they'll be thereabouts again, no doubt.
I think they need to look at the way they play, Gerard, because they just don't score heavily enough. I mean, we've seen that forward line without Franklin, and they've really dropped away the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season. They need to have more zoning, more spatial defence, similar to the modes we've seen the Western Bulldogs, Hawthorn, West Coast Eagles.
I was talking to an assistant coach of one of the sides that didn't make the 8 during the week, and I asked him specifically, will they go to a web-type defence? And he said his senior coach at this stage wasn't particularly of that view, and yet I look at the Swans and they've got very similar personnel, and to me something needs to change with their defence as well as their attack.
They need to complement one another, Brenny, don't they? You need to play the game on turnover. 60% of your scores come from turnover. You've got to be able to win the ball back from the opposition to give yourself the best chance of scoring.
Well, you do, King, and win the ball back on turnover. You need to be good kicks out of there. So I don't see Grundy. I don't see Teddy Richards. I don't see Nick Smith's not particularly a great kick. They put McVeigh there to help with some of that, I suppose, return out of their defence. And then you've got Laidler, who's not the greatest kick in the world. So I think that's the area that I would be looking at, certainly for Sydney, that needs some sort of improvement. It's going to be interesting to watch Grundy or Richards, how they go. They're getting older. Richards thought he was going to be retired. Takes another year. Grundy's got another 2 or 3 years. So it's going to be interesting, how can they hang on? And also, who have they got to come up and replace them going forward?
Well, after a double backflip with Pike from the AFL Commission regarding the trade ban, they're now in the market for somebody potentially around the 450. That's the Jeremy Howe figure. They don't seem to have replaced Nick Malcheski, his role in the back line. He's an intercept mark for the Demons. He may stay at Melbourne, but I think that's the sort of guy they need to somehow find again.
Yeah, but to me, he doesn't replace the Nick Malcheski. Because Malcheski's exactly the one that would pull the trigger on the kicks that they needed to rebound, to hit the corridor, to hit lead-up players. Howe doesn't do that now. I think he might be a good pickup in terms of having an intercept mark defender, but they need some distributors across half-back that can actually turn defence into attack.
Should they be looking at Yaron? He's that player, isn't he?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Interesting one. Maybe. He certainly gives them some run.
It might be good for his discipline. Sydney might straighten him up a little bit. You'd certainly need to fit into that Bloods culture. The good positive of the year is, though, we've seen that Tippett can play big minutes in ruck. He's kicked 44 goals for 45 for the season.
Was he unlucky not to be in the All-Australian squad?
I think he was. He played 50% in the ruck, 50% forward, still nearly kicked 50 goals. That's a huge number. So I know he had a big last few weeks, but he's been underrated a bit throughout the season, I believe.
I'd love to ask you guys about Gary Rowan. I mean, here's a young man that I reckon's got a great highlights reel, and we can see he can do some spectacular things. His run, his athleticism. We saw this perfect example at different stages. I mean, he's a long kick. He can kick goals. He misses this one. There was a run from half-back, which I found really exciting. And that's the sort of thing that can change the way they play the game. But then he ran himself into trouble and coughed it up. Now, they ended up keeping the ball, and it was okay. Got courage and all those sorts of things. But there's too many highlights and not enough of the consistent meat and 3 veg, if you like, week after week after week, and doesn't get enough of the footy. What do they do with him?
It's a good question. They've got to find a position for him and just trust him to play
him everywhere.
I know, and I think they've got to choose one and say you've got 5 weeks as a half-back flanker or 5 weeks as a wingman. We need to settle you down. We need to make sure you get some continuity in your football and see if you can actually develop into a B grader than an A grader for us, because right now he's a lost player, isn't he?
The Crows were similar. They had a very disappointing, poor loss on the weekend, but they've had a magnificent season. The Crows have rebounded as a club, and they've made...